Right, hello there everybody, Adam Clery from FourFourTwo here for you, and once again, a super duper whooper sky Sunday has given us Liverpool versus Manchester City in a game which feels like the whole season in microcosm. My word of the day toilet paper is paying for itself. Now, in recent seasons, this game has decided the destination of the championship, but this one is a bit of a weird one, because on the one hand, you've got a Liverpool side who are threatening to have a little bit of a wobble, but still just coasting towards a league win in February, which nobody predicted. And on the other side, you've got a Man City team, only now picking themselves back up off their own arses and praying they've not left it so late to do so that they won't even qualify for the Champions League, which, again, nobody predicted. And yet, because football is brilliant, this game managed to show you why both those statements are somehow true. Alright, so first up, these were your teams, and nothing majorly shocking or interesting about the 11s. Obviously for Manchester City, no Erling Haaland, so they were using Phil Foden as a false nine. And Kevin De Bruyne returns for a big game, which is bad because one of the best players in the history of the league appears to be going out sad, which I don't like. Now, Liverpool were pretty much exactly as you'd expect them. Trent Alexander-Arnold should be starting in these big games. Gakpo versus Diaz sometimes feels like a bit of a coin flip, but we're just going to start very quickly with the issues Manchester City have. So first up, for all the marbles, can you look at these four stills now neatly arranged on your screen and tell me what they've all got in common? I'll let you have a proper look, right? We're not on the clock here. Nobody's going to rush you. Just take all of that in, have a look, and tell me what you think the common factor is. And that's right, 1 million points for you. They're all Jeremy Doku having just skinned a Liverpool defender, but about to create absolutely niche as a result because there's no central focal point to benefit from. To benefit from it. That's English. That's a pretty obvious point to make, right? Because they haven't got Erling Haaland. And in these situations, you'd expect him to be here and here and here, and probably here. So that's weird, isn't it? Having all these moments that require a central focal point, but not having a central focal point. But Haaland has not vanished. Like, aliens did not whisk him away for a quick rectal probe. He didn't start because he's injured. Phil Foden started instead, and Pep Guardiola used him as a false nine, which you can see from his heat map here. There's no box presence whatsoever. He's going there and he's going there. And that's because the objective for Man City in this game was pretty straightforward. You have Foden occupy this space but drop out of it in the hope that you drag a defender with him, and all of a sudden that makes space for Marmoush to run into, for Doku, for Savinho, to create a channel in behind that the quicker running players can get into. And yet, back to those stills, centre-backs aren't going to get drawn out of position when a winger is constantly one-on-one that deep with a defender. In those situations, as you can see them doing here, they mark the space instead. And in those situations, the onus is then on the centre-forward to either physically bully a bit of room to get a shot away, or just outmaneuver them with their running. That is what centre-forward play is, and Phil Foden wasn't doing any of that. Because, obviously, he is Phil Foden, and exhibits A, B, C, and F, this is what he does, not that. Thus, then, that begs the question, why, if you've got Phil Foden doing this, have you got Jeremy Doku doing this? Who I think in the process broke some sort of records for the number of successful take-ons, because that play requires like a conventional centre-forward, but Foden's play requires sitting deep and getting into the space instead. Like I am a dweeb on the internet with zero formal qualifications talking to little plastic football men, and I am watching that game of football thinking, Pep, mate, you just clearly haven't thought this through, have you? Except he had, and in the early exchanges of the game, the plan Man City had was actually working really well. Foden repeatedly in the first 20 minutes dragged either Konaté or Van Dijk out of position. Look, you can see him doing it here, and then Man City's runners were able to break into that space behind. And you can see in this bit here, because Foden has dragged one of the defenders away, this time when Doku gets in, Liverpool are a man light. They're genuinely in a bit of trouble here, and if Savinho's a little bit quicker than Robertson getting across this ball, he probably scores. But this, and thank you for sticking with me, Liverpool fans, is where the praise of the Reds begins. Because I've said a couple of times this season in other videos, one of my favourite things about doing this job is when you see the hand of the manager impact the game as it's unfolding. And Arne Slot this season has been the undisputed master of doing that. He saw this happening several times in the first couple of minutes and thought, nope, we're going to change it. He instructs his centre-backs to not go and chase Phil Foden, instead makes his midfield a slightly flatter two and tells 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔 𝗧𝗏 do not allow those balls into Foden in the first place, thus removing the necessity for a defender to step out to cover him. Now this was, to be fair, quite a subtle change, because if you look at those really early exchanges, you can see 𝗘𝗏𝗧𝗏 was already dropping into the back line to make sure Liverpool still had a 4 whenever one of the defenders was going after Foden. But even though the numbers are right there, that is such thin ice, because if you look at the gap that's now created, Marmoush must have been licking his lips at the possibilities there. Sooner or later, that would have just collapsed. But what I did think was particularly clever about this change was it was also situational, because when 𝗘𝗏𝗧𝗏 did then drop back into the line to make sure they had 5 versus 5, 𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 was then taking the responsibility to sit on Foden instead. And this is maybe a bit of a weird way to highlight it, right? But if you look at all of Phil Foden's successful passes before this change was made, you'll see the sort of in the centre of the pitch. He was able to drop into that area, get on the ball, pull a defender with him, and then they would get Liverpool turned. But after the change, and this is why it's going to look a bit weird, all of his touches are actually much closer to the goal, which seems sort of counterintuitive, like that's a more dangerous position to be in, but now he's doing it with his back up against the defenders. There's no space in behind him being created. Like, it looks very defensive, but this change that Arne Slot made completely killed Man City's only real viable way of opening them up. Like, after this happened, City didn't really get anything resembling a good chance. The thing is, this is actually quite a big gamble on Slot's part, because by doing so, he more or less entirely surrendered possession of the ball to Man City. Like, I saw a stat like this is maybe Liverpool's lowest amount of possession in a league victory ever. They barely saw the ball after they did this, but they were also extremely comfortable defending. And also, the potential problem this could create is now at the other end of the pitch, City have got 5 players here, they're back 4 and Gonzalez, and you're not only having to sort of press them, but also try and break on them with a man less. That is what mathematicians would call a 4v5. But just to go back to that Doku stuff from the start of the video, from a defensive standpoint, this was a brilliant move, because now they were getting deeper and deeper and having less and less of the ball, but without a focal centre forward, when Doku does win his one-on-ones and break through, nobody in the box to take advantage of that. And thus, all the chances they created from that point on are pretty unexciting. Like, there's very little incision in there. There's nothing really getting into Liverpool's box. It's all cutbacks here and little attempts here. And in fact, this one here from Kevin De Bruyne that looks like it's right in the middle of the goal, go back and look at what that was. Like, it's a second phase from a set piece. Like, the guy's got his back to goal. Liverpool have plenty players in attendance. That does not open them up at all. It's speculative. And speculative, by the way, was not on the toilet paper. I already know that one. So what we have here is excellent in-game management from a manager who is excellent at in-game management. That stops Manchester City getting on top of you and creating chances. But that's not the story of the game, is it? Because Liverpool went and won it by scoring goals. And this change actually makes that harder. So how did they do that? And this, my dear chums, is where conversations about tactics and setup and systems and all that will only take you so far. What Slot required in this game was the individual excellence and effective execution, that's really hard to say, of these 4 players against 5. His real gamble was that even with a man less, they could still press effectively and they could still break effectively. And they did! And you might think, oh, the first goal is a clever set-piece routine. It's not really got anything to do with all of this. But if you wind it back to how they get that corner in the first place, would you look at that? Foden is well attended to by one of the midfielders, and there's only 4 now putting pressure on the ball. First off, you've got Diaz positioning himself absolutely perfectly here, cutting off the balls back to the goalkeeper and the centre-back. So that's 1 player taking out 2 of theirs, thus offsetting the numerical advantage. Curtis Jones then puts enough pressure on the ball to stop Rico Lewis turning, but not so much that he himself gets turned, and Salah and Szoboszlai are backing it up just enough that any blind passes out of the danger area are going to be roundly punished. They're able to turn the ball over, they come alive straight away in the attack. City panic, all scramble back for the ball and leave Diaz totally unmarked. He's then slipped in and they win the corner. I've just looked at that. Is he offside? This is the first time I've seen this from this angle. Is he actually offside? Really hard to tell. He might be. Oh well. Anyway, though, virtually nothing of value to add from me on the corner. Just a really, really nicely worked routine. Like, first off, I did notice this bit watching the game. Why is Rico Lewis marking Van Dijk there? But it doesn't ultimately matter because Van Dijk's job is to simply condense all of City's defenders into this area of the pitch, which again, numerical advantage. Liverpool managed to get, what, like 9 City players all crowded in this area with 3 or 4 of theirs. That's really clever. But anyway, yes, the second goal, count them. Once again, the amount of Liverpool players trying to get up the pitch really quickly here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And where is Phil Foden? He is being neatly attended to by one of Liverpool's midfielders instead. You see? This stuff works. They get it down the line. Salah's combination play is predictably perfect, and he drives the entire City back line into the box, thus making this space between them and Gonzalez for the shot. And again, that's not necessarily like really high-end, clever tactical stuff. It's just the gamble Slot took that if it's the 4 of these up against the 5 of these, they're good enough that they can mean those numbers don't matter that much. And when you have to double up on Salah, it works. But also, I would just like to point out, credit here, please, to Curtis Jones before the shot comes in, because I would argue this defender is probably pretty well equipped to step out to block that shot. You can literally see he has a look to see whether Lewis is attending to Diaz. So that is what he should do there, but he cannot, because the run Curtis Jones makes, probably not really expecting to get on the ball given how condensed everything is, absolutely pins him in that spot. None of them can really jump out from that line because of the run he's made. And that goal is just what it looks like when a big managerial gamble pays off, because the changes Slot made, I thought, completely restricted Man City. They were going to make sure that Liverpool had a real foundation to go on and win the game. But what he was asking really was for these 4 players just to figure out how they would then go and do that. And you can see in the winning of the corner and the second goal that they do manage to do that. They're just better at making this stuff happen than City's defenders were at stopping it. And football genuinely sometimes can just be that simple. It's fun to watch. And also, just Mo Salah, like, what do you even say about him at this point? Like, I'm just going to move all this. I'm just going to pull all these stats wholesale off that Squawker tweet because it made my head completely fall off, right? He's sitting down. First player in Premier League history to register 40 goal involvements in 2 different seasons. First player in Europe's top 5 leagues to be directly involved in 50 goals across all competitions this season. Has now scored and assisted in 11 Premier League games this season. The most by a player in a single season in Europe's leagues since Messi did it like 10 years ago. Provided more assists this season than any other Liverpool player has in a single Premier League season. First player in Premier League history to score and assist in both games against the reigning champions. First player to score 25 goals and register 15 assists in a single season. He should be slowing down the age he is, but a combination of just his refusal to die as a top-level athlete and also the way Slot uses him now by just restricting what he's asked him to do and letting him do better stuff that he's better at is just wow. And it is a bit weird to try and highlight that. I have to move this again by using the contributions of another player, but City are so reliant on Guardiola's movement down that left-hand side. Like, even when they've got 5 in the attacking line, his runs enable him to get a 6 and to still overload the opposition. And this was him today. And it might still look pretty good, but that is missing enormous chunks of contribution where you would usually expect to see them. Despite the amount of the ball that Manchester City had, he could not do anything in the areas he was supposed to because Salah had him almost permanently pinned far deeper than that. And his hold-up play, I think, is probably the one part of Salah's game that gets slightly overlooked. But there were so many instances in this match of Salah holding his position, staying high, forcing Guardiola to stay with him, Liverpool releasing the ball early out to him, and then the strength is there, the decision-making is there. You would hold the ball up like this, wait for Liverpool to get up the pitch and take all of the pressure off. Like, you can do everything. Mo Salah, including, apparently, be a target man. He's just an unreal footballer, Mo Salah. It's a genuine pleasure, regardless of what club you support, to be able to watch him at the minute. And who knows where he's going to be after this. So I would honestly, if you like the game of football, just watch Liverpool now, if only for Mo Salah. I know he's had a bit of a sort of lull the last couple of weeks, but when he's on it, it's nobody better in Europe. Or anywhere. I don't know why I just said in Europe there. There's nobody better anywhere, I don't think. At the minute, I've never seen the Neptunian League or things outside of our galaxy. Maybe they have football and maybe they've got someone better than Mo Salah, but I'd be shocked. I'd be really shocked. So yes, all told, that's just a very long-winded way of saying that Arne Slot is an unbelievably good manager from the touchline, and you can see his hand influence things across the course of the game, but also that in Mo Salah, 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏, Curtis Jones, Diaz, whoever the hell else Liverpool want to throw on, they're just really, really, really good at football. And both those things combined can win you matches. Now, yes, if you have enjoyed that and you've enjoyed me, you can get me across all the social medias at Adam Clery, Clery, Twitter, I still call it that, Instagram, anything else you can think to imagine, I'm probably there. You should subscribe to FourFourTwo, the greatest football channel in the whole world, in my opinion, by clicking the little button. The brand socials are in the corner of the video, because that's where they always are, and the latest issue of the magazine is in all good retailers, because that's where it always is. But Liverpool fans, if I still have your attention, please let me know in the comments below what you made of this game. So I've seen some people being like, oh, City did kind of dominate that. Liverpool don't look as good as they normally do. Is that how you feel? Like, I know the results have been a couple of draws here and there, but you're not getting beat and you're not playing badly. Do you think it's all over and done with? Are you going to be okay with losing the Carabao Cup final to my beloved Newcastle? I don't really believe that. Next month. All of it's really good. I like reading it all. I love you. But yes, until next time, this was Liverpool and this was Manchester City, and this is Arne Slot just cruising towards the most unlikely, easily Premier League title anyone's ever seen. And do you know what? Fair play to him, is what I say. Goodbye.